Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I've lived in my quiet suburban neighborhood for over 15 years. All my neighbors are friendly retirees who like to spend their time gardening and relaxing on their porches. Well, they were friendly until she moved in. Karen. Even her name rubs me the wrong way. She pulled up in a huge RV, parking it right on the street in front of my house, blocking my view. The first day, I figured maybe she was just visiting someone on my street. But after that RV sat there for a week straight, I realized this was not temporary. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I walked over and knocked on her door. A nasal voice called out, "It's open!" I stepped inside and introduced myself. "Hi there, I'm John, your neighbor from across the street. Just wanted to come by and welcome you to the neighborhood." Karen stood there in a bathrobe, hair up in curlers, snacking on a bowl of cereal. "Oh, good," the neighbor. "I was meaning to speak to you about that hideous tree in your front yard. It's really an eyesore. You need to chop it down ASAP." I was so shocked by her rude comment that I stammered, "I'm sorry, that tree was planted by my grandfather. It has sentimental value." She cut me off. Yeah, I don't really care about your little family tree. I need you to cut it down because it's ruining my view out the RV window. And paint your house while you're at it. That color is atrocious." I was completely stunned. I politely responded, "I'll take your comments under consideration, but I make the decisions about my own property. I actually came by to ask how long you plan on parking in front of my house." "Oh, this spot has the best sun exposure. I'll be here indefinitely," she snapped back. My frustration grew as the days passed and her RV remained planted on my lawn. My normally quiet street was now constant commotion, as Karen entertained guests late into the night. Loud music and drunken laughter flowed from the RV daily. I also noticed questionable characters coming and going at odd hours. One night, I was jolted awake at 2 a.m. by a loud engine rumbling. I looked out to see Karen attempting to angle her RV closer to my bedroom window. I stormed outside in my pajamas, shouting at her to stop. She yelled out her window, "You're too close to my vehicle. I'm just moving it over so you don't sideswipe me when you pull out of your driveway." The next morning, I called our city code enforcement office and lodged a formal complaint about the RV, but apparently Karen had already been in touch with them. She cited some obscure city code about RVs being allowed for temporary recreational use. She had registered it as her recreational vehicle and claimed she was within her rights to park on a public street. With no violations to cite her with, the city said there was nothing they could do. At my wit's end, I marched over and pounded on her door. "You need to move this RV now. It's disruptive to the neighborhood and especially unfair to me having it block my view 24/7. Karen coolly replied, "I'll tell you what. I'm willing to negotiate on relocating my RV. If you sign your property deed over to me, I'll move within 24 hours. My blood boiled. There was no way I was relinquishing my family's home to this deranged woman, but clearly reason and decency meant nothing to her. As the days turned into weeks, my frustration stewed and stewed. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Then finally, I had my epiphany. If reason wouldn't work, it was time to fight crazy with crazy. I went to the hardware store and purchased the biggest speakers I could find. That night, when Karen started blaring her music, I aimed my speakers out the window and cranked up the volume on the most obnoxious kids' songs I could find. I blasted Baby Shark and The Wheels on the Bus on repeat for hours. Through my window, I could see Karen smashing pillows over her ears to drown it out. This became my new nightly routine. Crazy, loud nursery rhymes to combat her loud partying. During the day, I got ruthless with my yard work. I pruned, mowed, and weed-whacked my lawn every single day, sending debris flying toward her precious RV. I churned up as much dust, dirt, and grass clippings as I could manage, not caring that most scattered across her vehicle. I also may have accidentally nicked her side mirror once when edging the walkway. When Karen confronted me about the debris, I replied, "Oh geez, my apologies. Just trying to tidy up my yard since you find it so unsightly." She scowled and stormed off. The final straw came one afternoon when I heard yelling coming from the RV. I peered out my window to see Karen scolding a frail elderly man who was walking his dog. "Keep that filthy mud away from my RV. If he so much as lifts his leg on my tires, I'll sue you for everything you're worth." The poor old man scurried away, his dog looking bewildered. Seeing her harass a helpless senior citizen fueled my rage. This neighborhood was my home, and she had gone too far. I decided to fight fire with an inferno. That night, I ordered the spiciest Indian takeout I could find and ate it outside her RV. The aromas of chili peppers and garlic penetrated the air. I hoped it might also seep into her vehicle and cling to the interior fabric. Considering I had also been spraying her tires and generator with liquid ass when she wasn't looking, I imagined the stench inside her RV must be unbearable. The coup de grace came a few days later when I enlisted my rambunctious young nephews to help. They loaded up on pixie sticks, soda, and candy before coming over for a play date in my yard. I gave them bubble guns and told them to go wild. Soon my yard was filled with bubble chaos as they tore around shrieking at the top of their lungs. The bubbles drifted over and clung to Karen's RV, leaving wet, soapy splotches across the sides. As the kids ran past her RV, they playfully slapped the vehicle, leaving sticky handprints everywhere. She came storming out, but when she started yelling at the kids, I intervened. "What's wrong, Karen? I thought you wanted to enjoy the fresh air and sunlight. Plus, I figured you liked recreational activities going on outside your RV." She turned purple with anger. "You've made your point," she sneered. "I'll be moving my RV first thing tomorrow morning." The next day, I watched with sweet satisfaction as she drove off in search of some new location to terrorize. I had finally reclaimed my yard and my peace of mind. Karen may have tried to bully me into relinquishing my property, but she clearly underestimated my determination to defend what was rightfully mine. In the end, her crazy was no match for my refusal to be intimidated or bullied off my own land. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My 2019 was wild, but with everything finally on the up and up, I feel I can tell this story here. After uni, late 2018, I fell on rough times and was forced to move back to my hometown. I tried to transfer my job to a branch in my area but failed, thus I needed to get a new job. I settled for a 20-hour-a-week job at a Bookies with a second bartending job in the evenings. The Bookies is the target for my revenge, which was entirely accidental. Involved are the following: Janelle, my manager's manager Shay, my manager Horch and Gordon, my co-workers, and Kara, a co-worker at another store who is relevant later. I ended up working behind the counter as a customer service manager, basically a step up from a cashier. It's fancy when seen on a CV, but there's nothing really to it. I took bets, chatted with customers, helped people with machines, and, for the vast majority of my shift, sat around waiting for something to do. I got on well with my co-workers, or so I thought, and had no major issues. It was 20 hours a week, about £1 more than minimum wage with a lot of overtime required of me and irregular shift patterns. Though I had no issue with the job, beyond how difficult it was to juggle the schedules of both of my jobs. In February of 2019, after working for the company for 6 months, I was invited to a probation hearing. It cannot be emphasized enough that it was a probation hearing in which I would have my performance reviewed and, as informed in training, was entitled to a pay rise at the end of it. I arrived that morning to a disciplinary hearing where, without even a shred of evidence, I was accused of 11 different cash discrepancies dating back to early November of 2018, shortly after I'd started, which all amounted to £271.36, all but one of which I'd never heard of before. These had apparently been reported and logged by my manager, Shay, and my co-workers, despite no one saying a word to me at all. Not a whisper in the 5 months this had apparently been occurring. I was told that it was unacceptable, a call was made to HR, and I was terminated on the spot and forced to hand over my keys and to never set foot in the store again. To my protests, I was told the decision could not be appealed, and I would eventually receive written confirmation of my employment's termination in the post. I didn't let myself slump around and feel sorry for myself, so, on the way home, I opened up Indeed and applied for a bunch of jobs and, before I arrived home, had an interview set up for the next week at what is my current place of work. Now I was furious, fuming at having gone to what I thought should have been a normal probation meeting and having effectively been called a thief and been banned for life from a place I'd never go to anyway. But somehow my parents were angrier and ordered me to let them know when they got into contact with me again. Almost 2 weeks later, I received an email from the company's HR, which reiterated the accusations and stated again that I was terminated. My mom sat me down in her kitchen and walked me through a letter response that was 2 parts professional and 3 parts scathing, ripping into them about their unprofessional conduct, their ludicrous claims, their lack of evidence, the holes in their story, because there were quite a few, and finally, the cherry on the cake, the employment laws they'd broken. Now I didn't want much, just a nice reference, a promise that not a whisper of these accusations would turn up when my new job asked them for a reference, because by then I'd already been offered the job. I then attached the letter to an email to fire back at their HR department. Then I added Janelle's work email, then her boss's email, and finally the holding company that owned the brand, because I wanted to make sure this was seen. A bit of background, the Bookies I worked for is a brand that is owned by an international company. Their name, behind the scenes, is slapped on everything, and they pretty much dictate everything we did. I'm not sure if holding company is the correct term, but I'll stick to that for now. Anyway, I sent this email with a 48-hour window for a response. I received a reply the next day from the same email that my demands were being met. I smirked victoriously and moved on with my life, happy to wash my hands with the entire ordeal. However, I'd set off a chain reaction that I wouldn't know about until 3 months later. 3 months on, I'd settled into my new job, a call center position with double the hours and well over double the pay. I'd gone through training and was settling into my new position when I see a new set of trainees settling in near my team. Among them was Gordon, one of my co-workers from the Bookies. I was stunned. Gordon had been at the Bookies for 6 years when I joined. He was well-liked, good at his job, and a favorite of the managers. There was no way he'd been fired, though I didn't really want to talk to him, as I was of the impression that he, Hork, and my manager had likely set me up. I did want to know what happened. Luckily, on seeing me in the break room one shift, he sought me out and told me everything. Apparently, my email had been read by the higher-ups in the holding company and had caused a lot of scrutiny to fall onto the Bookies in our town, of which there were 3 in our area that Janelle was responsible for, 2 in my town, and a 3rd in a neighboring one. Someone in HR passed a message down to the area manager, Janelle's boss, claiming they wanted things investigated and they wanted results yesterday, causing him to drop everything and descend on our little town with the panic and aggression of a man whose superiors were watching his every breath. He went to Janelle wanting to know why he hadn't been made aware previously that I was apparently stealing money, why I had been given keys to the shop and shifts on my own when allegations of that nature were attributed to me, and why I hadn't been put under investigation. Turns out, Janelle had, in fact, put in my employee file that I was under investigation, but had never actually gone through with any of the official procedures for monitoring and investigating me. Shock horror. Thus, she had fired me for the accused crime without looking into it at all, falsely claiming otherwise. Thus, the area manager took the dates and amounts of the cash discrepancies, confirmed that they had been reported on those days without my knowledge in Shay's own logbook of the shop's cash, and sent that information on to our security team to investigate. Another little detail is that the CCTV for every shop in the brand is outsourced to a private security company who monitors each shop remotely and has access to all the cameras and video. As was procedure, they looked into the dates mentioned to see if I'd been doing anything untoward. I know I wasn't, and nothing was ever said to me. But they did find something. Turns out, money was going missing from the shop, but, surprise, surprise, it wasn't me, but Jorge and Shay. They not only set me up, for reasons I will never know, but were also falsifying numbers and cash checks on the system to hide it. One thing Shay was caught doing was deliberately shortchanging customers by taking portions of their winnings without them even knowing it. Bear in mind, a lot of our customers were elderly men and women. Gordon claims that he once opened the shop, after I and Shay had closed the night before, and noticed a cash difference but had been told not to say anything to me as I was under investigation and it could compromise it. He did apologize, and I let it go. Needless to say, George and Shay were fired, but it doesn't end there. Our team was small, including me. There were a total of 4 people working at the store. As they hadn't been able to hire anyone to replace me, George and Shay's termination meant Gordon was the only employee at the busiest shop in our area. Even if they'd been able to get other colleagues from the 2 other shops to help out, it wouldn't have been enough to keep the shop open and manage the amount of customers. So they closed the location down until they could get the staff to run it. It was at that point that Gordon handed in his resignation and applied for his job at my work, meaning they had no one. On top of that, Gordon's girlfriend worked in the same shop as Janelle, and she relayed that she was rarely at their store in the other town for the next few weeks before the area manager reported she was fired as well. No reason given to her. I was later issued an apology for everything by the area manager and informed she, Janelle, was no longer with the company in an email sometime later. But somehow, it doesn't end there. With the store I worked at closed, this one being on the high street and where most people preferred to go, the only other location in town was the much smaller location in the suburbs, the one where Kara worked, alone. She suddenly received an influx of customers into her tiny store space and absolutely no support from other staff or upper management. Thus, for her own mental health, having already been overworked and underpaid running an entire store by herself, she quit, meaning that location had to be closed down too. All of this at the worst possible time, March, when the Cheltenham Festival was occurring, which is a huge moneymaker for the gambling industry, even in a small town like ours. An opportunity the three other bookies on the high street reaped the benefits of instead of my old place, as the former customers went to them instead. As it currently stands, just over a year later, both shops remain closed, and I'm currently entering a job in cybersecurity, the training for which I paid for with my current job. Update. Gordon and I got in touch with our old area manager, and we were able to gather more information. The security team combed through about 3 years' worth of footage after they discovered Horge and Shay's activities and estimated that in that period alone, they both stole nearly £4,000 through various means. The parent company also became involved and conducted a search through years of their cash checks and till checks, noting plenty of irregularities. The parent company pursued criminal charges and the two were arrested. As far as our area manager knows, the case is still ongoing because they are still determining the exact amount they stole. Given their long tenures, Jorge about 8 years and Shay 10 years. I doubt they'll have security footage covering that entire time, but they're likely trying to get a more accurate figure. And now, a new character enters the story. Tammy. Not her real name, of course. She's an employee who was hired and fired shortly before I was, at the same store. She lasted just past her probation, before being fired for months of cash discrepancies and false till checks she wasn't made aware of beforehand. However, Tammy's situation is far worse than mine. She is in the process of suing the company for wrongful termination, citing financial and emotional damages. She experienced a lot of stress during her time on the job, with Shay apparently leaving her to handle difficult customers on her own and refusing to step in. Shortly after her employment was terminated, Tammy suffered a miscarriage. Our area manager doesn't have more information, as the situation has escalated beyond his purview. I doubt I'll be able to obtain any further details, but it doesn't seem like the company is faring well in this regard, and I wish her the best. Gordon and I are considering reaching out to some of the other terminated employees, of whom he can name a few terminated for similar reasons, to get their perspective. However, it's quite evident that Shay and Jorge's misconduct had been ongoing for a long time, and I was merely the latest scapegoat. As far as I'm aware, Janelle is doing perfectly fine. Several years ago, she and her husband started a taxi company, and it appears she's become more involved in that venture. I haven't seen her, so I can't say for sure, but she was terminated for gross misconduct and failing to follow procedures, which aligns with my expectations. Kara, who our area manager actually dislikes but is lovely and did not deserve what she went through, is doing okay. I messaged her, and she and her partner recently purchased a house. She also secured a job as an events manager at a local historical site. She's happier there, as she now has people to talk to at work and isn't alone anymore. The next one is a petty revenge story. I knew exactly who it was. She was the only one who had seen where I put them. This woman was a pain. Opinionated, gossipy, lazy, and just all-around drama. I'll call her Karen. I knew if I approached her, she'd deny it, get all butthurt and make a scene. So I let it go. One morning I took a personal call and was away from my desk for about 30 minutes. When I returned, a new package of cookies I had brought that morning had been opened and was 4 short. She must have watched me leave and came by while I was outside. Until now, she'd just taken a few out of what was already open, but she'd graduated to opening boxes. The nerve! I took a sheet of white paper and wrote in big black Sharpie letters, "Karen, stop stealing from me, you entitled thief. I've got you on video. Don't make me take it to HR or put it on the internet. Shame on you. I taped it over the food so she would see it as soon as she slid the door open. Once she saw the note, Karen would have two choices. 1. Admit she was caught. 2. Pretend she hadn't seen it. The problem was that Karen did not like being called out, and I knew it would kill her to stay quiet and pretend like she didn't see me calling her a thief. The next morning, I walked by Karen's desk like normal and said hello. She refused to look at me. Me. Good morning, Karen. Karen. Grunts hi. I stopped in front of her desk, made a face of fake concern. Everything okay? Karen turned her chair toward me, and I knew she had seen the note. I could see it in her eyes. She loathed me for calling her out, and she knew that unless she admitted to it, she couldn't say a damn word about it. I smiled broadly. Karen. I'm great. Insert sarcasm here. Thanks for asking. I got to my desk and opened the drawer. The note was still there, but my food had not been touched. She hated me after that and would bash me to anyone willing to listen. The thing was, she could never quite explain or give details as to why I was such the idiot she claimed I was. I didn't care, my snacks were safe. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.